Welcome, everyone, to the Modern Day Overthinker podcast. My name is Colin, and I'm your host. This week's episode is with Brandon Scott. He is the owner of Culture Shock Barbershop. He's been cutting my hair for a long time now, and we always talk about mental health when I'm there, so I had to bring him back. We've done an episode, that was like a year and a half ago, probably.
Oh, almost 2. That was right when I opened the new location of the shop. So, yeah, it was about 2 years ago.
Yeah. And we were talking about that earlier. The audio with the clippers is tough.
Yeah.
You've been trying to figure that out yourself.
I've been trying to figure that one out. Still haven't quite figured it out.
Yeah, it's tough. But, yeah, because you have a podcast that you've been working on. You've been on and off here. We talked about that, too.
Yeah, it's been I think it's been almost a year since I've done it. It's something I want to get back into. Like I said, I'm just trying to figure it out. I try to make it feel and sound like you're in a barbershop, but having the clippers on the entire time gets a little annoying.
Yeah.
Haven't figured out quite how to filter that out and turn that down. So I'm kind of working on tweaking the concept and figuring out how to kind of mess with that a little bit, and then I want to get back into doing it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like the concept, too, because it's different because there's just so many podcasts now. That's the problem. People are like, have you listened to this podcast? Have you listened to that podcast? I'm like, it's hard for me to listen to any podcast because I'm doing this one and I'm editing.
Well, and for me, it was kind of like I wanted to do a podcast, but I'm like, okay, like, what is it that I can bring? What can I do that's different than just the typical podcast type of thing? And the reason I like the concept of inside the barbershop cutting hair is because a lot of people kind of, if you're not used to sitting in front of a camera, you can kind of freeze up and you don't really see who that person truly is.
Yeah.
Where when you're cutting their hair, you're spinning them. They don't see a camera. They're used to being around me. They're used to being in that environment. So you kind of see the raw, authentic person. And I just really like that concept and being able to see that. Like I said, I just have to try to figure out the audio situation.
And you're actually cutting their hair. So they're there for a reason, too.
Exactly. And they come in, I cut their hair, and so it's like I do the video too, so anyone who is interested in cutting hair, you see that aspect of it too. Like you can kind of see what I'm doing. I don't explain anything that I'm doing. It's not like a tutorial, but you can still see me doing it, whatever. So yeah, it's something I want to get back into. I just have to kind of tweak the format a little bit, maybe only do it like partially while I'm cutting. So I don't know. I'm kind of working on some ideas, but it's definitely something I'm going to try to get up again.
And with the concept in general, like, I've talked to many people like that. Some people obviously don't go to therapy and like they treat their barber kind of like their therapist.
Oh, for sure. And that's a lot of the concept is
it's like the old school, the OG therapist is the barber.
It's like the conversations that I have with people. That's what I want to bring. It's not, and I like the concept because I can kind of bring anyone on. Yeah, I'm not like forced into any box. I can have anyone I want on. And so, yeah, that's what I like is just kind of, I mean, that's why my podcast is called Beyond the Cut, because it's kind of, I want to show people it's not, I don't look at what I do as far as cutting hair. I don't necessarily love the aspect of like walking in and being like, oh man, I get to cut hair today. Like obviously I like cutting hair. I wouldn't have been doing it for almost 10 years now, but I would not say at all that it's my passion as far as like if I go a week without doing a haircut, I'm cool. It's not like I'm like fiending like, oh man, I need to do this. I love the interaction. I love the conversations, getting to know people, learning. I've got clients that do a little bit of everything. And so it's just like, it's almost like the Joe Rogan type thing where it's just like conversations
you can bring
with
anyone
and like, I want to learn. Like, I'm just curious. Like, I've always been a very naturally curious person. So it's like, if I think you have anything interesting to say or whatever, I don't care what you do. I'll have you come on the podcast type of thing once I get it up and running again. But I just feel like that's kind of a way that I can show that people are way similar than what people think they are. Like when you look on the internet.
Not that much different.
Yeah, like when you look on the internet, you look at Facebook, you look at Twitter, it seems like the country is so divided, and the far and extreme on both sides. Yeah, you're 100% right. They are. Your average person isn't like that. The conversations I have, I'll go from cutting someone that has done 15 years in jail to a lawyer to a cop to a 8-year-old kid, and it's like I have to bounce around and have those conversations, but it's crazy how similar people are. Like,
oh yeah,
everyone goes through the same struggles. Like, obviously some people have different struggles than others, but it's like people deal with death, people deal with depression, people deal with all of that stuff. And I think it's easy to see how extreme things are and think that people are so far apart, but being able to do what I do and deal with the different, like, everything I deal with as far as like the different people, different professions, different everything, I get to see a different side that I don't think a lot of people get to see. And it's like, man, we are way more similar on most topics than people think we are.
And so I've noticed that working in customer service, talking to different people.
Exactly.
All the time. Yeah.
And so that's kind of the concept I want to bring, is just to show that, like, hey man, like, you have way more in common with most people than you actually think that you do, because everything is so amplified that is negativity, whether it's far right, far left, I don't care, whatever. It's so much negativity, and it's so much just, it's crazy because it's a small group of people, but it doesn't seem like it is because they're so loud.
Negativity gets highlighted.
Yeah, and it seems like
clicks.
Most of the people who are posting the most are the people with extreme views. You very rarely see someone that's like a moderate, like, oh yeah, I can see both sides. Like, you don't see those people posting because it's just like, it's not worth it. I don't post anything political, anything to do with anything like that.
Opinionated. Yeah.
I'm going to have those conversations in my barbershop. I'm going to have those like, I don't shy away from those conversations. I shy away from them on the internet because everything can get taken out of context.
Yep.
You have no idea, is this person being sarcastic? Are they being real? Who is this person? Like, you have no idea. And so it's just like, I've just kind of checked out. I do the barbershop stuff, post the business stuff, what I need to, and I've kind of checked out on all of that. It's just, everything you see is so negative, and it's like, I would look at that stuff and then go deal with real people, and it's like, this isn't real life. Like, this isn't how people are in real life. This isn't how people are in the barbershop every day. And so it's kind of like, it's cool to be able to get that perspective, because a lot of people don't. You're with the same coworkers every day. You're with the same family members every day. You're kind of insulated in this little bubble, where for me, it's like, I never know who's going to walk through that door. I never know what experience I'm going to have. Never know what kind of conversation I'm going to have, what kind of connection I could make with someone. So that's the aspect I enjoy more about the aspect of being a barber. And that's kind of why I would like to shift the podcast and do that a little bit more, is just because it kind of, I can show my passion through that, instead of like just like posting pictures of haircuts and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, that's cool, but that's not my passion. My passion is like the connection with people and the creativity that flows in those conversations and all that type of stuff. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to shift my focus more towards, is kind of being able to have more of those conversations, I guess, and focus more on that type of stuff, and get the podcast running and be able to kind of lean more into my passion side of it than necessarily just the going in and cutting hair type of thing.
Well, and I mean, right now, your business concept, you obviously you had other people and have people cutting hair in your shop, and you're trying to transition to just doing your own thing again, so you can focus on these other passion projects.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big thing. Is I've been in the barber industry now through barber college and working in barbershops and everything for going on 10 years now. And it's just, I don't think people necessarily understand what working in a barbershop is really like, as far as you can work with your best friends in the entire world. And I have, and you hear the same stories over and over and over. Like, I do the same thing. Like, I'm just as guilty of this as anyone. I'm 100% not trying to throw shade at anyone, anything like that. But it's like, you have something exciting going on in your life. You want to talk about it. You want to talk about it with your clients. Mm-hmm. You have 10 clients. I have a week of that. I'm standing 4 feet away from you, hearing the same story 10 times. It can just get to the point that you're just like, okay, man, like, okay, I don't want to hear this anymore. And then it's like, you can be in a conversation with someone and you're trying to take it to like a deeper level, but there's a ton of people in the barbershop and this person isn't going to be comfortable opening up in front of a bunch of people that they don't know. And so like,
that makes sense.
There's that aspect to it. And then just dealing with the stress of the business. And then my dad owned the building. He still does. We're going to sell it. But I mean, I went from a 300 square foot shop on Washington to a 3,000 square foot building that I had the barbershop in part. In the beginning, I had a salon, and then that closed, and then I was going to try to open a yoga studio, and in the back, I had my area where I do custom shoes and stuff, and it was just, there was so much, and I always had to be at the building doing something, whether it was something had gone wrong
They
at the
might
building.
as well have lived there like the first shop.
Exactly. I literally thought about throwing a bed in the back, but it was just like, and then there's like constant upgrades, and you got to worry about outside. And there was an acre of land, so it's like,
oh yeah, I didn't even
mowing and snow removal. You got to figure all that stuff out. And then it's like, because my dad owned the building, he had to do a bunch of stuff, so his weekends were taken up of him trying to do improvements on the building. And it was just like I had been feeling it was coming for a while. I just didn't want to kind of admit it. I think I was still kind of in the mindset of like, no, I'll push through this. I'll push through this.
Yeah, power through it. It'll be fine.
And it really started to amplify actually on the 5-year anniversary of opening the shop. It was really weird because that's kind of like a milestone that people are like, man, when you hit 5 years, like that's like you're good. Like you start turning a profit. You start doing this, all this type of stuff. And it's like I hit my 5 year and I was sitting there and I was like, I remember I was cutting one of my friends and he was like, man, what do you like, where do you see the shop in 5 years? And I was like, do you want me to be 100% honest? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, I don't see myself doing this more than 2. And he was like, what do you mean? And I was just like, the trying to expand and grow a brand and have people working for me and all of that stuff. I didn't see myself doing it for any more than 2 years. And so it was kind of like sitting there and it was like, okay, I've been doing this for 5. I don't really want this. I've kind of already internally realized that this isn't the goal that I want. This isn't really what I wanted to pursue. Why am I still doing this? And it was kind of like I had to kind of look inward and really like assess like, okay, what do I want out of life and what am I doing? And I was like, why do it for 2 more years? Why? Like, why build it? Why build it bigger? Why have more people working for me? Why do any of this if I already know that, hey, I'm done? Like at some point I'm walking away from this. And so, yeah, it was just essentially like, I just got to the point where it all just kind of, it clicked.
Way down.
Yeah. There was just like, there was just like a moment where it was just like, this needs to happen. And I made a phone call to a few people that I needed to talk to kind of like assess like, okay, like realistically, what does this look like? Like, and it was like, as soon as I had those conversations, it was like a giant weight was lifted off. And it was just like, yeah, this isn't what I want. I realized I was chasing this goal of entrepreneurship, and that's not what I want. I want the freedom to be able to do what I want to do. And there's a lot of things that I like to do, whether it's hair cutting, custom shoes, woodworking, all that type of stuff, just traveling again. And it was like I was working so hard on the barbershop, trying to get the yoga studio going and all of this stuff. And it was like, I haven't been enjoying life for like 2 years. And it's just like, I finally was like,
yeah,
I can admit that I don't want to do this forever. So why not just stop now? And it was like, I was like, I had people messaging me and stuff, and they were like, oh man, like, I'm so sorry and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, no guys, this is 100% like,
it's not a failure.
Yeah. This is 100% a positive thing. Like, this isn't like a financial, oh my God, I don't know what to do. We need to bail. I have to close. No, this is I've sat down and evaluated it, and I'm like, yo, straight up, this isn't what I want, and I want to walk away. And I know that probably sounds crazy to some people as far as like, man, I've spent 5 years of my life doing this. It's a success. Like, I could have expanded more. I could have, and it was just like, this isn't what I want. And it was a difficult decision to make, but once I made the decision, it was easy, if that makes sense. Like, it was difficult to finally admit it and be like, yeah, okay. But once I did, it was like, I remember a couple people being like, hey man, like just don't do anything rash. And I was like, you're right. Like I'm going to take the weekend. And it was like, I sat there and I was thinking, is there anything that could change my mind? And I'm like,
yeah,
I think at the time I had like 2 open chairs, and then I hadn't hired anyone at the yoga studio or anything yet. And I was like, say tomorrow 4 yoga instructors call me and 2 barbers call me and are like, hey, I want to come work for you. I'd still walk away. Like it was just like,
it's still not. Yeah,
I don't want that stress. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to be responsible for other people and their success and their livelihood. And it was just like, every decision I make, I have to think about like, okay, well, this person and then this person's going to be affected by this. And it's like, I just want to get back to my decisions only affect me and like, obviously like the people around me, my family and stuff like that, my girlfriend. But like, I'm tired of being it where it's like, if I decide I want to make a change, it affects so many people type of thing. I just want to get back to where it's just like, I make decisions that affect me and that's it. And like I said, it is 100% a positive thing.
Yeah,
like anyone,
I get it. It's just like
it's not a sad thing. It's not something that like I said, I'm not forced to do this. If I decided tomorrow I didn't want to do it, I could reverse course. But I mean, that's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
I am 100%.
Your mind is made up.
Yeah, 100%. Like I don't necessarily ever see myself getting involved in another like business ever again. Just the stress behind it is just. I don't think people understand the back end of what it means to own a business. And
yeah, it's a lot.
Just all the expense, the stuff you don't even think about, like the internet. And I mean, internet is insane. It was like $175 a month for business internet. And it's like, dude, I stream Spotify. Like I'm not someone that makes money.
Well, you have the POS, but that's.
Yeah. But it's like, I could see it if I made money off of Wi-Fi, like coffee shops, stuff like that. It's like, yeah, they're like, people are coming in, buying stuff, making revenue off of that. But it's like, yo, like pull the web history, man. We've listened to thousands of hours of Spotify and ran credit card transactions, and I've been paying $175 for it. And it's just like, that's the type of stuff that I'm just like, I'm so glad to not have to deal with that and just be able to walk away. And I'm not going to announce where yet, making sure all the details are kind of finalized. But I do have a new spot that I'm pretty confident is going to become the new spot. And it's the type of, it's still going to be, it's a private suite. So it's still culture shock. It's still me cutting hair. It's still like, it's not like I'm going back to work at a barbershop, anything like that. It's me in a room designed exactly how I want it type of thing. But I'm in a building with a bunch of other people type of thing. So it's kind of like a co-work space, but we all have our own private.
It's kind of like a business condo.
Exactly. But it's a flat fee. I don't have to worry about anything. We no longer own the building or are responsible for anything. And so it's so much stress just off my back.
Yeah, you get to go and worry about, do what you need to do.
Yeah, I'm actually for the first time like excited about like, okay, what am I doing? Like what's next? And I for a long time was just kind of like, I know what's next, and it's me walking away.
Yeah.
But when and what are the reasons why? And like, why do I want to walk away? And is this just a funk, or is this just something I'm going through right now? And it was like, I've honestly been thinking about it for probably 7-8 months, and then 3 months really heavily considering it. And then, like I said, just some circumstances popped up, and it was just kind of like yeah, man, it's time. I'm done. I'm not dealing with this anymore, and I'm going to walk away. And it's something that, like I said, it's 100% a positive thing, and I'm super excited about it. And hopefully I get to, in the next couple of weeks, announce where I'm going to be going. And I'm excited to get that going and just be back by myself.
Yeah. Yeah, mentally, it was probably just draining because you having that in the back of your mind for that much time for, like you said, 7 to 8 months. You kind of had in the back of your mind, and you're just like, probably made going in and doing what you need to do that much harder.
Oh, for sure. And then also, like, you throw in the aspect of being bipolar, and it's like, I've figured out and I know how to essentially put on a show if I need to, as far as like, if I wake up and I'm having an awful day, I know how to get myself through it for my clients.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I don't expect them to come in and deal with my issues while they're paying me for a haircut. So it's like
I don't want to talk to them. I'm just cutting your hair.
Exactly. So it's probably not the healthiest thing in the world, but like I've learned how to just push through on those days. But it's like the problem is that it's so much energy for me to do that I don't have the energy to deal with other people around me that aren't my clients. And so when I've been doing that for the last 10 years, it's like I finally realized that like I've been trying to figure out like what are my triggers, what's pushing my mental health, like what is it that is, what can I take out of my life that could help my mental health. And it was like sitting there and it's like that was one of the major things was just I don't have to put on as much of a show. I don't have to try to not only interact with just my clients. And it's like, I mean, some days I'm doing 7 haircuts, some days I'm doing 14 haircuts. And so it's like you wake up and you're having a bad day and you look and you're like, man, I've got 14 people with 20 to 30 minute haircut conversation with each person. Who knows who I'm going to be dealing with, the kind of conversations we're going to have. And so it's like, I've learned how to push through that and focus on that, but I don't have the energy or ability to do anything else. And so it's like back end business stuff, or I need to go get supplies, or I need to do this. And it's just like, dude, everything I have is going into physically being here right now. Like the fact that I'm here right now is
it took so much to show
it is a
up.
giant achievement. And I've realized that it's just, it wasn't necessarily fair to the people that worked with me for the last 10 years that they had to kind of get that short end of like, hey man, you're just like, unfortunately someone has to deal with the side effects of this, and I can't be the people that are my clients because they're not going to come back. So I control it the best I can, and I do the best that I can type of thing. But it's like, I also know that it's like, yo, it's probably not the easiest thing to be around me. And that's why I think it's another good idea just to kind of be self-aware, realize that, and be like, yo, I should just go back to cutting hair by myself, and no one has to deal with that anymore. And it was just like, a lot of it is just like you sit down and you just start to think about things from a logical perspective. And it was just like, wow, that makes so much more sense. Like my expenses are going down, my responsibilities are going down. Everything is like getting easier in my life. And it was just like,
do you find that, I know with my like anxiety and just like OCD, when I'm more stressed out, it spikes.
Oh, for sure.
Does that happen with bipolar
too? For sure. And the big thing for me too is like I've been relying a lot on like yoga and meditation. But I found that when I'm super stressed and I'm super busy, it takes so much energy for me just to get through the day that I don't have the energy to do yoga and meditate. And it's like that.
Yeah.
It's a vicious cycle and makes it worse. And so it's like,
what do you do? Just veg out?
It's not even that I just veg out. It's just like I force myself to be productive. Like it's very, very rare that I've always been a very productive, even like when I'm in my depressive funks, I'm still productive. I have this like inner monologue with myself that like, if I'm sitting there and I'm not doing something and there's something I need to be doing, it's like, it's hard for me to be able to focus on what I'm doing. And so
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
I've always been able to be like a very like productive person type of thing. So it doesn't necessarily affect me in that way. It's just, I have to put all my energy into doing the daily tasks that I have to do. And I'm able to force myself to do those.
Yeah.
But it's just like the thought of like, man, should I wake up at 6:30 and then do some yoga before work and meditate? It'll put me in a better mood and I'll have a better day. But I could also sleep till 7:15.
Yeah.
And then I don't have to put in the energy of doing yoga, and because it just seems like so, and when you do it,
and you know it's good for you.
Exactly. Yeah. And then when you do it, you're like, oh man, I'm so glad I did that. And so for me, it's a lot of just, I do really well when I get into a routine, but it's easy for me to fall out of a routine. So like I have a very obsessive personality. I don't really like, I try to not use the word addictive personality. I don't really like that term. So I would say I have an obsessive personality. And so I get into things very quickly, but I can fall out of things very easily too. So it's like, there's like that saying, like, it takes 21 days to make a habit. That's not true with me. It takes like 4 days for me to make a habit.
Yeah.
And if I'm consistently doing it, I'm good. Like last year, I think I went like 7 months with every day meditating and pretty much every day doing yoga. I'm sure I missed a day here or there type of thing.
You had that discipline.
But it was like, I got sick. I think I got like kidney stones or something like that. And it was like, I took 4 days off, and those 4 days off was just enough to get me out of that routine. And it was like, I didn't do it for 3 months, and then I get into a routine. And so for me, it's just trying to figure out that way to stay disciplined in your routine and forcing myself to do the things that I know are going to benefit me, even when I don't want to do them, because that's when you need to do them the most.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's such a difficult thing, because it's like you're sitting there and you're like, dude, get off the couch, or stop doing what you're doing. Whatever. Stop like distracting yourself by doing something that you shouldn't even really be doing right now, and go do yoga. And you're just like, nah. And then you're like,
yeah,
dude, you'd feel so much better if you do it. Like, and then it's almost like,
and then you kick your own ass later, and you're like, I didn't do that.
Yeah, and then you beat yourself up and you make yourself feel horrible about it. And so it's like, for me, that's a huge thing, is working on like that self-talk and the like, because it's like typically if I do yoga, I like to do 45 minutes to an hour kind of minimum.
That's a long time.
So that's why there's days that I'm just like, man, like a 45-minute session just sounds like
3 hours.
Yeah. And so I've learned to kind of just like, sometimes doing something is better than doing nothing. And so it's like, if 45 minutes just seems absolutely overwhelming,
do 15, do 20.
Do, even if it's just stretching, just do something in the realm of what you want to do, and at least you did something. It's better than just being like, nah, man, I'm just not going to do anything. And it's like, I fully believe there are times that you have to push yourself. Like there's times that you have to like suck it up and just do it. But there's also times that I get it. Like there's times that it's like, hey man, like it doesn't matter how hard I try, I'm not going to be able to force myself to do 45 minutes today.
Yeah.
Let me push myself to do 15. And it's like, I still like to push myself in that sense where it's like, if you're like, okay, I'm going to do 15, I try to do 20, that type of, you know what I mean? Like I try to push it a little bit just because it's like, I do think there is something to pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, and
oh, absolutely.
The more times you say no and the more times you don't do something, the harder it is to say yes to it. And so that's kind of why and it's obviously it's super hypocritical, because I mean, I'll go 6 months without doing stuff, but it's like, I know this stuff.
Yeah.
I know this to be true. I know I need to do this stuff, but every once in a while you just kind of fall out of it. But so that's something that's huge for me right now, is just trying to figure out how to stay in that routine. If something happens and I can't do something for a few days, how do I stay in that routine, and how do I make sure that I don't replace it with something else? Because it's not like I just like drop it and it's like, oh, I got free time now. No, that time is now taken up with something. Whatever it might be, I start obsessing about the next thing, and then I don't do that for 3 or 4 days, and it's just like, it's a cycle that it's just been like this my whole life type of thing. But I'm starting to get a little bit more control over it. But yeah, just trying to figure that out, of doing the things you know are going to help you, even on the days you don't want to do them, because that's the days you need to do it the most.
Oh yeah, that happens to me all the time. One thing I implemented that I'm just like, since I work from home and there's days where I don't go outside all day, I'm just like, you need to go outside, just go for a walk around the neighborhood. Like, even if it's kind of cold, now that it's getting nicer, it's less of it. I have less excuses.
Yep.
And just go for a walk, and even that makes me feel like 5 times better at least.
That's a huge thing for me. Like in the spring and summer and fall, I go hiking all the time. I'm walking. I take my dogs outside, but you will never meet someone who hates cold weather more than I do. And so it's like in the winter, it's like, I know it's like, man, you need to go on a walk. You need to do this. You need to go hike. But it's just like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And then I step outside and it's like, no, we're not going to do this today. I'm good. And so that's a huge thing for me, is it just, and one thing I've been just listening to a bunch of podcasts recently, like on mental health while I'm doing stuff. And, I've been looking a lot into like the cold shower, cold plunge type of thing.
I just bought one yesterday. I I bought the cheaper version, the one that like inflates or whatever.
Yeah, no, I'm for sure. If I'm gonna
the
do
new Recover one.
Yeah, but
yeah,
like it's like
because I've done it a couple times and it's pretty.
Yeah, and everything I've done, all the podcasts I've listened to, everything I've
Everybody's
read,
all about it.
Everyone is all about it. Every doctor is about it. Like there is no one who has shown anything negative about it.
Exactly.
Other than if you go like too cold, too long type of thing. But the problem is that like I absolutely hate cold water. Like
it's brutal.
Most people's pools during the summer, I'm just like I don't even want to go in there. Like but I know and so it's just one of those things where it's incredible. Like. And that's a huge thing for me now, too, is I'm going to try to start doing it in the mornings. And it's just like essentially starting your day off with something you don't want to do, but you force yourself to do it. As weird as it sounds, can kind of start your day off exactly right. Where it's like, man, I don't want to do this. Like, I do not. Like, the thought of tomorrow morning being like, okay, I'm going to get up for the day. Let me turn the shower ice cold and step into it. Like that, there's no part of me that wants to do that. No. But I understand that I probably should, and it's something I need to start doing, but it's just like, man, like I'm the type that it's like if I'm taking a shower too long and the hot water starts to go out and I start to feel anything cold, it's like, yep, nope, shower's over, I'm out.
We're done.
So it's like that, but that's a huge thing that I'm going to try to start forcing myself to do. And like I said, I think it is important to kind of push yourself out of your comfort zone, especially when it's something that there is so much research that shows it improves mental health, it improves
physical, mental,
so many things, so many benefits that it's like, okay, suck it up, let's do this. But man, I'm not looking forward to it. I keep being like, okay, tomorrow's the day I'm going to start. Tomorrow's the day I'm going to start, and I still haven't started it yet. But it is something that I'm going to be doing super soon because, like I said, everything I listen to, they bring it up, and it's just nothing but positive.
Yeah, it's funny. I was going to bring that up because I just like literally ordered one of the because I've tried to do the full submersion, but I'm too tall for my tub. Yeah. So
I wouldn't be able to do it in my tub either. I would have to get something.
So I got although like the really cool ones are super expensive, and I was like, I'm not going to spend $2,000.
Yeah, I looked one up and I was like, I can't spend that much money on something. Can't
justify this expense.
Well, especially something that I'm not going to enjoy. Like it's like if I'm dropping $2,000 on something, this better be something I enjoy, not like man, I don't want to do this. This is going to be miserable, but I'll spend $2,000 on it.
Yeah, I spent $70 on this thing because I had a discount code.
I'm gonna go get one of those like cow trough things and just put it outside, and we'll rock that.
I've been looking for one of those too. Like they're harder to find because everybody's jumping in on this, and like trying to do it. And
it's definitely the new hot thing.
But there's a reason for it.
Yeah, and I'm glad that the new hot thing has something to do with mental health.
Yeah,
like,
it's beneficial.
So many people hate on this stuff, like when they're like, "Oh, everyone's jumping on board with it." And it's like, at least it's something positive. Yeah, like, at least we're hopping on board with something that's beneficial for once, and it's not something that's like the typical stupid stuff that people typically hop on type of thing. It's not.
Yeah, and it's a positive thing, and I wanted to segue into that, the perspective and talking about what we talked about the other day, and the focusing too much on the negative aspects of mental health or your mental illness, and trying to focus more on any positives, or just focusing less on the negatives, not necessarily finding positives, because sometimes there aren't, but focusing on the negatives will leave you stuck.
Yeah, and like I said, I've been listening to a bunch of podcasts recently and finding specific people to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
One dude I've started listening to a lot is Andrew Huberman.
I've heard that name before.
He's been on Rogan a couple times. That's where I heard about him the first time, but he has a podcast that's called Huberman Lab that he brings a bunch of doctors on. He's not a practicing doctor, but he is like a research doctor.
He has a doctorate, yeah.
Yeah, and he like studies the brain and all that type of stuff. But it's something I had personally been kind of like internally thinking for a while, but I heard him kind of mention it on one of his podcasts where he was talking about how, like, obviously there are so many negative things with mental health. Like, as someone who has bipolar and I struggle with it every day, trust me, like there is a lot of negative aspects of it. But I just feel like, and every case is different. Like some people that have absolutely severe, like I'm, I guess, lucky in the sense of I'm bipolar 2 and mine's fairly manageable. Like I struggle a lot, but I've learned how to kind of manage it. people who have extreme cases, this obviously probably doesn't apply to them. But for me, it's just kind of like I've for so long kind of looked at mental health through only a negative lens. And it was like almost like wrapped up in the identity of like, yo, I'm bipolar and this is awful.
Is a part of
like,
my personality.
Yeah. And it's like, man, this is awful. Like when I would post, it was only about like the struggles and like, yo, do you know what this is like? And this is what I go through. And when you focus on that, I feel like it amplifies that. And I feel like the more I think about the bipolar disorder and the mood swings and the depression, and I feel like that's when I struggle with it the most. And so for me, it was kind of like taking a step back and being like, okay, like this is definitely got its negatives. Like I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh yeah, this is awesome. It sucks. But I'm a super creative person. I don't think I would have the creativity I have if it wasn't for my bipolar. Most of my ideas come when I'm in a certain state of mind. Like
depressive state usually, or it comes either or.
So it's weird. I kind of have a few different states that I kind of like go in between. Mm-hmm. I have just obviously the normal. Like today, I just feel like a normal person.
Pretty chill.
Yeah, nothing. I'm not dealing with anything today. No anxiety, anything like that. But then I've got my depressive funks, which they get pretty bad. But then I've got obviously my manic days. And then I deal with a lot of actually mixed, which they're probably the most dangerous phase for me when I'm in my mixed, as far as I have depressive thoughts, but manic energy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it's like I'm up and I'm moving and I'm doing stuff, and you would think that I'm in a manic episode and that I'm happy and everything's cool, but on the inside I'm having depressive thoughts and I'm having all that stuff. And it's like
kind of like on autopilot a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit on autopilot, but it's also like I'm less aware of what's happening. And a lot of the times when I'm in my, like, I forget what my therapist called it. I'll just call it a dual stage or whatever.
Yeah.
But
there's probably a medical term.
I'm sure that there is. They're so confusing to me.
Yeah.
But it's like it's almost like a disassociation.
Okay.
And it's not a disassociation in the sense of like I get these two. There's like a disassociation and there's a different term for it. I'm not exactly sure which one it is. It's always kind of confused me, but I don't feel like I'm outside of my body or anything like that. It's not the like, oh, I'm looking down on myself. It's more of just like a questioning, like, is this like, what's real? Like, is this like, and it's almost like you look at the world through just a straight black and white lens, and you just see like how dumb some things are. And it just makes it really difficult because it's just like, you'll be having a conversation with someone and like in your mind, it's such a logical, like, how this is so simple. How can you not think this? Like, and I'm just like in this state where I can't really take into account what that person is feeling or thinking. Normally I'm super in tune to that. And normally I'm a very self-aware person, but it's like when I get into these funks, it's the only time that I'm self-aware in the fact that I know I'm in them, but I don't really know how to control them that well. And so those are the ones that I kind of have to be
the scariest ones.
Yeah, those are the ones I have to be the most careful of. And then in like my manic episodes, I've learned how to kind of manage them in the sense that I won't let myself make a big decision if I'm in a manic phase. I've been able to, through therapy, my therapist has kind of learned how, or taught me how to identify where I'm at. I'm usually pretty good at identifying where I'm at, other than a lot of times in the mixed episodes. So I've just learned, like, when I'm in a manic episode, I'll wake up and it's like, yo, I want to do an event and I want to make it the biggest event that's ever been done. And I want to do this and this. And in the past,
I'm on top of the world.
Well, and then in the past, it's like the day I have the idea, I'm texting people and I'm throwing it out and I'm doing all this stuff. And then it's like you wake up 2 days later and you're like, oh my God, what did I do? I'm depressed now. I don't even want to get out of bed and I'm supposed to do this event. Yeah. And so it's like, for me, notes are huge. I write it down. I write down all my ideas. There's so many, like, my notes on my iPhone. There's just random words that would make no sense to anyone, but I see it and it triggers the idea back. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's like, yeah, there's negatives to my bipolar, but there's also positives. And I've just had to kind of learn how to identify those positives and also not let my bipolar disorder identify me as a person. I have bipolar, but that doesn't make me who I am. And I feel like mental health, it's very easy to get attached to that stigma of like, oh, that's that dude, he's bipolar, or oh, that's that person, they're schizophrenic, or whatever it is. And it's like, no, that's a person. Like when you see someone like that's dealing with a physical ailment, you don't point out like, oh, that's that, you know what I mean? Like, and so it's just like, I feel like there's this weird thing with mental health that it's 100% a negative stigma attached to mental health. And I get it. I understand it. I struggle. Like, I'm not trying to sit here.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah, I'm not trying to sit here and sugarcoat it and be like, oh, this is great. But I do think that there are some hidden positives, I guess. It's just like, to me, it's like, I have this. There's nothing I can do. I can't wake up tomorrow and not be bipolar. I'm not saying to not do everything you can to manage it. By no means am I saying like, there's positives to it. Stop taking meds, stop doing everything, just live life. No, that's definitely not what I'm saying. Do everything. Go to therapy. If you need to be on medicine, take medicine. If you can do a more natural approach with holistic stuff and that type of stuff, do that. Do whatever works for you. But like, it's, I don't know. To me, it's just like, there's such a negative stigma that it's just like, you have to figure it out, what works for you, and you have to figure that out. But it's like, figure out what positives are there. Sometimes there's not. Like, let's be honest. Like, people with like extreme bipolar disorder, probably difficult for them to find a positive in it. But it's like, man, you look at some of the most creative people that have ever lived, like poets and actors and all of this stuff, and there is a crazy link to not just bipolar but mental health in general.
I've noticed that with my depression. My OCD, I haven't been able to find any positives because it's just like the way I have OCD, it's like what's called pure OCD, where I have a lot of intrusive thoughts, stuff like I don't want to think about at all. So I don't really see much positive to that, but I also don't like dwell on it like, oh, this is part of me, this sucks, and like, because that just makes it worse.
And like, trust me, I deal with that stuff too. Like, there's times that I've dealt with suicidal thoughts and, and all of that type of stuff. And once again, that is 100% a negative thing. However,
when you highlight it,
it makes it worse. But I also believe that the fact that I've battled through those thoughts, and the fact that I have the support system that I have, and the fact that I'm here, has kind of made me realize that like, I can push through almost anything.
Yeah, it makes
and
you stronger.
So it's like, it sucks. Like 100%. I'm not at all trying to say that like the intrusive thoughts, the suicidal thoughts, all of that stuff, that sucks 100%. But you also have to look at it from the standpoint of like, you're still here. You push through what a lot of people haven't been able to push through, and what a lot of people will never be able to understand. Because if you've never had suicidal thoughts, you can try to understand as much as you can. And you should. You should try to understand as much as you possibly can. But if you've never been there and you've never had those thoughts, there's no possible way you can understand it. To be at the point that you're just like, I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
It's not something you can understand unless you've been there. And so it's like, it is 100% a negative thing. However, I almost look at it from some of the mentally strongest people I know are the people who deal with mental disorders, because we have to be able to push through it. And so it's like, there's so many negative things that sucks, but you also have the power that you've pushed through it. You've gotten the help you need, and use that ability that you have to push through that and to kind of deal with that in other aspects of your life, and use that to kind of help you push through things, whether that's like when you're working out and it's like, man, I don't want to do another rep, I'm done. Use that ability that you have. That's like, like, what about when you were at the time that you didn't want to live anymore and you picked yourself up and you were like, no, I'm going to do that. And so it's like, that's the type of thing where we've always been told negatives with that. And it's 100% negative. But you can try to find a silver lining of, I was able to fight through this, and let me bring this aspect to something else in my life. Let me push myself in some other way to better myself in some sort of type of way, I guess, type of thing. But that's just kind of my huge thing, is just flipping it, because pretty much everyone who deals with mental illness, you deal with negative self-thought. So to sit there and always tell yourself negative things and be like, this sucks, I wish I wasn't like this.
Affirmations are actually something that I've heard from a lot of different people, like positive affirmations. Like, it sounds corny.
Oh, for sure.
It's like, I have some written right there. Like, I don't read them nearly enough, but my therapist, or I think it was my therapist or my psychiatrist, was like, write these down, like read them out loud and like to yourself, like, as corny as they sound.
Well,
like,
and that's I forget, man, I wish I could remember. I believe his name was Peter. It was a recent episode on Joe Rogan I was listening to, and he was talking about how he struggled with a lot of negative self-thoughts and self-sabotaging thoughts and stuff. And what his therapist did, I thought that this was actually a pretty smart thing to do. What his therapist did was, when he was having those thoughts, to say them out loud and to send them to the therapist. And then you go back and you listen to it and you realize like how ridiculous it is. Mm-hmm. And like, you think about it from a perspective of like, would you say this to someone else?
Yeah.
What would you say if someone said this to you? And it's like, when you put it in that perspective, whether it's writing it down or doing a voice recording of it, and you go back and you read it, you're like, wow, that was a really stupid thing to say. And I wouldn't ever say that to someone else. Why would I say it to myself? And so
the way you treat yourself.
And that's why for me, it's like, I'm a big believer in what you tell yourself is what you believe, like we were just talking about. And so that's why for me, it's like when I talk about how like I had an obsessive personality and stuff, like alcohol was a problem for me. Was I an alcoholic? I don't know. I don't really know the definition of that. Like, who knows? According to some people, probably. According to others, probably not. It's irrelevant.
You knew it was an issue.
Yeah, to me, it's irrelevant. But it's like, when I decided to quit, people were like, did you go to meetings? Did you do this? And for me personally, and I fully understand, I'm not at all trying to discredit anything whatsoever. I understand some people need it and it works, and I'm all for it. But I never needed to go to any of like the AA or anything like that. And the only aspect I don't like about the AA and in any recovery program is the 30 years down the line standing up saying, hi, I'm an alcoholic. I think continuing to tell yourself you're an alcoholic every day of your life for the next 30 years, you're going to identify as an alcoholic.
I've heard that opinion,
And it's just like, I get it, but to me, it's like you put so much pressure on yourself. Like, I have an idea of when I quit drinking, just because the last time I drank was on my 30th birthday. So I know, like, it was my 30th birthday. Could not even begin to tell you the amount of days, anything like that.
Yeah.
I actually wish I didn't know. I don't like to know how long I have, because I feel like people put so much pressure on themselves.
On the time.
And it's like, to me, it's absolutely insane that it's like, you see these people that, and like I said, I'm not trying to throw shade. It's just, I'm using this as an example, but it's like, you see someone that they have a 10-year sobriety chip. Mm-hmm. They have one night and they're like, here you go, I'm back at day one. And it's like, I don't believe that. Like, you had one bad night. Cool. You had 10 years of good nights. Why are you restarting completely? And I feel like that's why a lot of people end up relapsing, is because they put so much pressure on not. And it's like, man, you
have to have the right perspective.
If I relapse, my life is over. Like, I've had glasses of wine. One of my buddies had his own line of whiskey come out. I had a glass with him, of course. Like, it's like, yeah, man, my friend came out with wine or with whiskey.
You didn't get wasted.
Yeah, I'm gonna sit there and have a glass with him. Like, I never identified as an alcoholic, and I don't really like to identify as, like, I say I don't drink. I don't like to consider myself sober, because I'm not gonna say I'm not ever gonna have a drink again in my life, type of thing. It's just like, for me, it was an issue.
You're like, I'm not a drinker.
Yeah, and I don't miss it. I don't enjoy it. Like, sometimes does like a glass of whiskey with a cigar or something sound nice? Yeah, I'm sure I'll do that in the future again. I'll have a glass of wine with dinner or something every now and then. But like, I don't miss the out drinking vodka straight days, like of my past, like I used to do type of thing. And for me, it's,
well, you used it as a coping mechanism.
Oh, for sure. It was a huge coping mechanism for me.
Well, that's the thing a lot of people don't understand about whether you call it alcoholism, whether you call it like just a substance abuse or whatever.
Yeah.
Is these people aren't doing it just because like there's an underlying issue. There's something going on.
And for me, like,
it's their solution to their problem.
Oh, for sure. And like mine started like in high school. I went to, and this is why I would never recommend, like if you are seeking help for mental health, please don't ever go see just a normal physician. They are not trained in mental health. They're just going to throw some generic pills at you and they're going to send you out the door. That's what happened when I first went. I was in high school and I went to a doctor and he instantly hit me with ADHD.
Yeah, because that's all he knew what to do.
That's a symptom of bipolar. Most people who are bipolar have ADHD. So they threw me on bipolar, or they threw me on, I don't remember if it was Ritalin, Adderall, whatever
Something
it was.
Like that, yeah.
And it didn't fix the main issues. And so I stopped taking it.
Yeah.
And then probably about a year later, I went to a different doctor and it was like, oh, you're depressed. Here you go.
Another physician.
Yeah, just like another, just standard, normal. Yeah, just normal doctor. And it was like, come to find out, one of the worst things you can do for people who are bipolar is to give them antidepressants. Just antidepressants. That's not something that they do. They don't prescribe that. And so it's like, yo, dude, you just gave someone who's bipolar one of the worst things you could give them. So it didn't make anything better, made everything worse. And so I was just kind of like, at that point, like, man, I'm done. I'm done with doctors. They don't know what they're talking about. I knew that there was something wrong, but it was just kind of like, okay, we're just gonna do this. And drinking was my escape for sure. And drinking is kind of what made me end up having to get help. There was a time in 2012 that I don't remember most of the night, but I remember I drank a lot of alcohol. And I was at 11th Street and I was leaving and I was going to drive. I had my keys in my hand. And thankfully, one of my best friends, Reed, followed me out. But I was stumbling. I don't remember going to my car. But I was in the parking lot, that gravel parking lot down by the bridge. And I passed out face first right before I got to my car. And so it was like, Reed was there, called my mom. My mom's a nurse. And so my mom and my dad were like, what's going on? And I was throwing up. So they're like, essentially, there's nothing a hospital can do. Like if you go to the hospital, they're going to pump your stomach so you start throwing up. I was already throwing up, so there was nothing they could really do. So Reed was like, do you want me to take him to the hospital or do you want to come get him? So my parents had to come down and get me. I was literally laying covered in throw up in a parking lot in the Village. And so they took me home. I don't remember any of it, but I remember waking up in the morning and I was in the clothes I was wearing the night before. They'd put me on the living room floor, had a pillow and a blanket, and I just like looked over and I saw my mom and I was just like, I messed up this time. Like, this is not good.
Yeah.
And like the look she gave me.
Yeah.
And she just like handed me a note and I was just like, oh man. And I was supposed to work that day. And I was just like, I don't want to be here. This is it. Like, I don't want to be here. And so I drove to work, which that was probably not a good idea. But I remember I walked in and I sat down and my boss was like, dude, I can smell you from 20 feet away. Go home.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was the same with my parents at the time. I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going there. So I like went to a friend's apartment or something. But I remember I opened the letter and it was just like a letter that my mom had written me while she was watching me because she was worried I was going to throw up and choke on it. And it was like essentially a letter that was like, if you don't go get help, I can't continue to do this. And so it was like, that was the moment for me where it was like, okay, I have to get help. And so my mom got me in at Genesis Psychology Associates. This was back in probably 2012. And it was like, sat down with this dude and like 15 minutes into the conversation, he's like, dude, you're bipolar. And it was like, oh, and unfortunately, I wish that was my wake up call from alcohol, but it wasn't. I think I was sober for like 6 months, and then you go back to I'm 23, I'm partying type of thing.
Yeah, you're like, I'm in my 20s.
It's like, and I'm on medicine. I go to therapy now. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah,
but it was like I had to hit a really, really low point to be able to kind of be forced to go, and I'm glad I did. But like my number one recommendation to people is like, do not go to a family doctor.
See a specialist.
See a specialist, whether it's online, whatever. Like, it's not like, I'm not trying to throw disrespect to those doctors, because like, you're still a doctor, but you're not. It's like, for me, I don't do women's hair. I do hair, but I don't know how to do I don't know how to do colors and stuff like that. I stay in my lane. Come to me, you want a fade? Cool. Come to me and you want your hair color? That's not going to go well. Yeah. So it's like, to me, it's like, yo, go to a specialist. Go to someone who actually understands and isn't going to pick out the first symptom and be like, oh, here's an antidepressant. It's like, that was, if I would have gotten the help I needed when I was younger, I don't feel like I would have struggled as much as I did. But then looking back, I'm happy with where I'm at in life. And so it's kind of like,
yeah, you can't change that.
And I don't know if I would want to change anything, just because, like I said, I'm cool with where I'm at. Like, I love my life now, and I wouldn't change anything. Like, obviously it's like, it sucks I had to go through that stuff, but that's kind of my path in life. I usually learn lessons the hard way. It's like, I have everyone telling me like, this is a bad idea. This is a bad idea. And I'm like, no, trust me. I got it. And it was a bad idea.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's just kind of like, the more I've matured, the more I've gotten older, I've been able to kind of start to listen to the people around me and not necessarily learn everything the hard way. And, but yeah, for me, giving up alcohol was one of the biggest things for me. That was one of the biggest negatives of my mental health, because it's like, because I didn't just drink, I had drank.
Yeah.
And it was like, it would turn into like 6-7 days a week, like just sitting there watching TV, and I have whiskey in my pop, and it's like, dude, it's 5:00 on a Tuesday. What are you doing? And it was just like, that was normal to me. Like, I'm high functioning on substances. I think that's part of the problem. It's like, people couldn't tell that I was drunk until I was at the point that I was like blacking out.
Yeah.
I can be pretty drunk and no one would have any idea. And so it's like, being high functioning on substances is also a problem when you have an obsessive personality, because it's like, I could drink all day. I'd be like sitting there just like pouring a little bit in, riding a buzz all day. You get off work and then it's like, okay, now it's time to drink. And I could handle it, and it wasn't weird to me. And I'm able to convince myself of like weird things, that it's like, man, as long as you're not drunk, like it's fine. Just pour a little bit. Like, you're just driving down the road. It's fine. Just put it in a different container. And it's not like, there's just things that like, you look back and you're just like, how did I convince myself that was a good idea and that was okay? Like, I remember going to Iowa City to tailgate and being like, well, I mean, everyone's going to be drinking already up there because I'm running late. Might as well grab a 6-pack, and like, I'm not going to get drunk off of a 6-pack. So like, why not drink some on the, and it's like, you get out of the car and you're just like looking back and you're like, I'm like, I was such an idiot. Like, what were you doing? Why? But at the time, that just seemed so normal to me. It did not. And that was part of the issue. It's like, the fact that wasn't weird to me and that was normal to me that's definitely a problem, because that's not normal and that's not something you should be doing. But it's like, that was just normal for me. It never fazed me. Didn't matter if I was by myself, with people, there was probably alcohol in my cup. And it was just like, but I would also go 6-7 months without drinking. I've always had that ability. It wasn't like I've consistently for 15 years been like a heavy drinker. It's like, I would go 6 months where I'm just like, I'm just not going to drink, and I'm cool. But then I would drink, and it would kind of all cycle itself. Once again, it comes back to the obsessive personality and the fact that I'm able to pick up and drop habits pretty quickly. Yeah. So it's like, if I decide I want to stop doing something, pretty easy for me to just stop, which is, I know a lot of people struggle with that. And that's why a lot of people need AA and they need that support system, which, cool, if that's what you need, 100% go do it. That's not what I need. If I decide I'm done, I just, okay, cool, I'm not going to drink. I'm going to have it. But that's the scary thing, is that it's like, okay, I could easily pick it back up. Like, if I drank for 3 days in a row, it's probably going to go on for a little bit. And so that's what I have to be careful of, is like, say I do decide to drink sometime, make sure it's a one-night thing. Make sure, like, hey, if you have a drink on a Friday night, don't do it for a while. Like, have that be a one-off, because I know if it's like, well, I had a few Friday night and I was able to only have 3, so I didn't get drunk, so that's fine. I can have a couple Saturday night too, and then
it starts the cycle all over again.
Yeah, and so that's a big thing for me, is just kind of understanding your personality, understanding kind of what your triggers are, and then like making sure that you kind of eliminate those from your life and are as aware of them as you can possibly be.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's that self-awareness is huge. I mean, I talk about self-awareness with people all the time, just because like it's kind of a double-edged sword too, because you're like, when we were talking about earlier, like, I know I need to do this, but I don't want to do it.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And it's also difficult just because like when you're depressed, you're depressed, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like there's some people that aren't able to identify it, and they're just, they feel down, but they don't really know why. And for me, it's like I wake up and I'm like, oh, today's gonna be a rough one.
Here we are. Yep.
And like my therapist has taught me how to identify it from an early stage. Like my anxiety, it starts in my stomach. I get this weird feeling in my stomach, and as soon as I get that feeling, I know what steps I need to take to try to like curb it. Because if I let it grow from that, and it's like, if I'm just like, oh, I'm just going to ignore that and like not deal with that,
suppress it,
and it keeps building and building and building, then it gets to the point that it's like I'm having actual anxiety and I'm on the verge of an anxiety attack type of thing, where it's like learning like the early stages. It's kind of like how like we have like weather warning systems where it's like, hey, like, here you go, this is the first sign, here's the second sign, for me it's like, okay, figure out what is your first sign. And for me, what I did was I would just keep my phone. Obviously, everyone always has their phone on them. Mm-hmm. And when I would experience anxiety, I would start to write what I was experiencing, or depression, whatever it is. But you start to write like the first step where you notice, where it's like, okay, when did I notice I had anxiety? Write down what you were feeling in that exact moment. And then you try to trace it back and back and back. And then you figure it out. Like for me, it's like, okay, I feel this little weird feeling in my stomach, and that's like, okay, here it comes. And then it slowly builds up, and then I can feel it in my chest and then in my throat. But for me, it was like, at first it was like I felt the tightness in my chest. So it's like, you're right, like having anxiety, tightness in chest. And then you realize like, okay, I already have anxiety when my chest is tight. So what was it that I felt before that? And that's kind of how I've been able to kind of be more self-aware and figure out what state I'm in, is being able to kind of do that and backtrack of like, okay, I woke up today and I feel like I could run a marathon and become president of the United States.
Yeah.
Probably in a manic phase, and I should pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of it, is just being self-aware, and also having people around me. Like my girlfriend's pretty good about, like, especially when I'm in my mixed phases, being like, hey, like there's some stuff going on. And it's like, yeah, cool, thank you. Like I needed to see that. Like, so same thing, like family, like, especially because I'm very open about my mental illness. I don't let it define me. Like I don't identify it as it type of thing. Like I don't let it wrap up my identity, but I want to be open about it.
Yeah.
Because I want people to know that, like, yeah, I struggle with it, but I still do everything I need to do in life. Like, there's ways to survive. It's not the easiest. Like, do I think everything would be easier if I was essentially playing with the full deck? Obviously. But I'm cool. Like,
yeah, you got to work with what you got.
Yeah, like, well, and people have always asked, like, if you had the ability to take your bipolar away, would you? And I think my answer would depend on the day, obviously. Like when I'm in my like depressive, like if I'm in like a suicidal type thought, take it away. 100%, I'm going to be like, yeah, I don't ever want to deal with this ever again. But then I think about it from the standpoint of like the things I enjoy most in life come from my creative side. So would I still have my creative side? If that would go away, I don't think I would. Like as much as the lows suck, some of the highs are so great, man. Like the ideas I come up with, and just the days that you have when if you're having a manic day and you understand you're having a manic day and you're able to control it, you can have phenomenal days because you understand, like, hey, this is a fleeting feeling. I'm not going to feel this forever. I could 2 hours from now come crashing. So for me, it's just kind of like learning to enjoy that moment and embracing that moment. And when I'm depressed, understanding that, like, for me, it's like when I'm in my depressed states, it's not like I'm coming up with like shoe designs and all that type of stuff. It's more of the introspective. I learn things about myself. I write things more expressive in that sense when I'm in my depressive phase, and when I'm in my manic or
I write
mixed.
better jokes when I'm depressed.
Exactly. Like, and I was watching something the other day, and they said like 90% of like the most successful poets in the world struggle with either like bipolar or depression or all this stuff, and it's because it makes you turn inward, and you're able to kind of reach parts of yourself that most people don't think about. And so for me, it's just learning what to do when I'm in those phases. So it's like, that's why for me, I won't really accept stuff that's on crazy deadlines, because for me, it's like, if I'm going to do a pair of shoes, you want me to do it when I'm feeling creative. If I'm feeling depressed, you're not going to get a very good product. And so if someone calls me and is like, hey, I need a shoe in a week, I'm not the one for you.
Yeah.
Because I've learned that I have to do what my body and my mind is telling me to do. So it's like, if I wake up and I'm depressed and I'm like, man, I need to get some stuff off, I know I need to either do a podcast or write something or talk to someone or do something like that. And instead it was always like, well, I just need to force myself to be creative. And then you start to beat yourself up and you're like, man, maybe I lost my creativity. And it's just like, no, man, you're just in the wrong state of mind.
Yeah.
Where when I'm manic, I can't do the like inner personal, get really in touch with my feelings type of thing. So it's just learning, okay, what phase am I in, and what benefit can I get from this? Because obviously there's negatives to both, but there's positives to both too, because some of the best ideas I've ever had in life have come from a manic episode. I write them down because my manic episodes don't usually last that long. Yeah. But it's like, okay, I'm manic. I got to be smart. I got to not blow money. I got to not do this. I got to not decide to move across the country. I have like, there's so much stuff I have to do or make sure I don't do when I'm in a manic episode. But there's also so much stuff I can do, where it's like, when I'm in my like high manic things, it's like I can walk into a room and I look around and I can design an entire room in my head instantly. And it's just like, I'm depressed. I walk into a room. That's not happening. So it's just like, that to me, it's like, yeah, there's negatives, but man, some of the trade-offs are, I don't think I would be who I am. I don't think I'd be a barber. I don't think I would be doing any of like the art stuff I do if I didn't have bipolar disorder. So it's like, yeah, it sucks, but I'm choosing to try to find some positive in it. Like, it's essentially, to me, it's like a why not, man. I struggle with it no matter what. Yeah. Why not try to find something positive out of it? Yeah. And my creativity is something, like I've been listening to a lot of stuff on like Rick Rubin, and I just actually downloaded his book for audio, and he talks about creativity and like the mental health side of it and all that type of stuff, and just understanding that like when the creativity flows, you got to go with it because it's not always there. And so for me, it's like, I've learned when my creativity usually hits and I just kind of let it flow and I do my thing in there and I deal with the negative side effects. It's just like the medicine that I take. Yeah, there's a lot of positives with it. It helps me. It makes life easier, but there's negative side effects. Yeah. Just like everything, you know what I mean? So it's like almost everything you do in life, it's like there's positives and negatives. But when it comes to mental health, only the negatives are brought up. And so it's just kind of like, I'm just trying to be the person that's like, hey, man, yeah, this sucks, but you have this, or you can do this, or like, yeah, ADHD sucks, but it gives us the ability to do some stuff that other people can't type. And so it's just like, obviously not all situations are the same. There's some that it's like I'm not trying to sit here and say that like every person in the world should find positive with their debilitating stuff. I don't have debilitating bipolar disorder. I struggle with it, but I've been able to get through life fairly well with it. Yeah. So my experience is different than anyone else's. That's a big thing for me, is because I've fallen into this before, where you listen to someone and they did something and you're like, that's what I have to do. That's going to solve all of my problems. And you like focus on one idea or one person or one podcast or one thing. And it's like, just because it worked for someone else doesn't mean it works for you. It's kind of the trap I fell into with entrepreneurship. I said, I was joking with you earlier. It's like, I call it the Gary V effect. And it's like you watch him and it's like, if you're not grinding and you're not doing this and you're not doing this, you're not an entrepreneur, you suck, you this, and you're just like, man, I need to do this. Like, he's success. And it's like, for a while, and it wasn't like, I actually never really listened to Gary Vee stuff. I just use him as an example because I see everyone talk about him. But there were certain people, like Steve Jobs was a huge inspiration for me, just the way he thought about life and all that stuff. And it was like, I've found myself at times like leaning so far into that it's like, yo, that was Steve Jobs. That's not you.
That's not
like,
you. Yeah.
Take the positives from that, take what I need to from that, but I like to get a mix of everyone. I'll even listen to people I disagree with just because it's like, you need to,
perspective.
Because for me, it's something I'm working on, like just being more open-minded. Like, I'm fairly open-minded. I mean, I've changed my belief system as much as you possibly could. Like, grew up very conservative Christian family, like essentially like if the Bible said it, that's what it was type of thing. And it's like, that's not who I am anymore. That's not what I believe. Like, I remember, like, I'm very open about it too, because I don't believe in this, like, you should hide from your past and you should worry about people finding it out. It's like, I wanted to be a youth pastor for a while, and I remember I did a sermon on homosexuality and was like, oh, it's a sin, it's a choice. And that was just stuff that, like, at the time,
you didn't know any better.
It's like, that's what I had been told. And I'm not trying to like shade anyone, because like, you have to think, like, this was in the 90s where it wasn't as accepted as it is. And so it's like, I was just taught from a biblical perspective. It was like, yo, this is wrong. So you just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, that's wrong. And then it's like, I got into the barbershop world and I just kind of left the church scene and kind of saw the world from a different perspective. And it's like, my views could not be any more open-minded now. Like, I do everything I can in my power to make sure that anyone and everyone feels comfortable in my barbershop. Like, I cut a bunch of people that like do drag and stuff like that. And it's like, it's awesome. I support them, whatever they want.
Yeah.
But I also don't think it's fair to like try to sit here and pretend like that's who I've always been, because I feel like it's important for people to see that people can change, because we live in like the society that we live in right now. It's like,
you have these views and you have to have these views for the rest of your life. This is who you are. You can't change. Nobody change. It's like,
and it's like, that's why. Well, and it's like, part of me is like glad that's why like there's no videos of me preaching back in the day, because it was before everyone like videoed everything. But it's just so easy to take things out of context. Like, someone could easily go back, see that clip of video, be like, yo, look what this dude said in 2009, and not taking like account who I am in 2023. And so it's like, you see memes about it all the time, but it's like, if you knew me in 2008, you no longer know. And it's like, if you knew me in 2021, you no longer know me. Like,
not the same person.
I am a completely different person than I was back then. And it's like, I think that's how everyone should be. And it's a good thing to change, as long as it's like, obviously like in positive ways and stuff. But I just hate this, like, yeah, you need to be held accountable for things that you did, but to like hold someone like hostage to an idea they had when they were like, like most of us when we were 10 years old wanted to be Spider-Man. And it's like, you look back now like, hey, you idiot, remember when you wanted to be Spider-Man? You're stupid. And it's just like, you grow, 10. Man. Like, you learn, you evolve. And to me, it shows growth. It shows the fact that, and I need to be more open-minded, 100%. There's things I realize all the time that I'm like, yo, like, my response to that was very closed-minded. And a lot of it, once again, comes down to being self-aware. But I just feel like people need to be open. And a lot of people are scared to talk about beliefs they had in the past because of the cancel culture or whatever it is. And it's just like, I don't care.
Like, no, I used to think like that. I don't anymore. Well, it's also like important to talk about.
But it's also like, I don't like see myself as like an important enough person in society that like my views should change. Like, it's just like, yo, this is just like, personally, like, this is just what I believe. Like, and this is who I was back then. This is what I said. Like, those words came out of my mouth. I'm not going to sit here and pretend they didn't, but those words don't come out of my mouth now. That's the huge thing. It's like, I do everything I can to support whatever cause I can. Did you have different views growing up? Yeah, but you can change. And that's the huge thing for me, is just like, you see so many people that it's like a prisoner of your past. And it's just like, especially for me, it's like I stopped going out. So I run into people that haven't seen me since 2015 when I was the drunk idiot down for anything that's hop in a car and go wherever. And it's like, I'm sober. I do yoga. I meditate, growing my hair out, all of this stuff. And people are just like, what is happening? And it's like, yo, this is the new me. And this is the best version of me that I've ever had. And this is who I am as a person. And you knew that version of me back then. That version of me was that version of me. That's not me anymore. And I just feel like people always say like people don't change. And it's because people won't let you change. I can't tell you how many times people like almost try to like bring you back down to where you were. And it's just like, oh, well, he does yoga now and he meditates now. But, well, back in 2015, I saw him get mad and almost fight this dude over that. And it's just like, yeah, 100%. I used to have a temper and I used to do stupid stuff and say stupid stuff. But I'm not that person anymore. But people try to bring it out of you. And it's like, I'll be around people that it's like they try to antagonize you enough that it's like, and I think some of it is honestly like, because it's hard. It's hard to change. And I think people don't want to put in the necessary work to change. So it's easier to just.
It takes work.
It's just easier to like make it so that it's like, oh, well, no, this person can't change. Like, no, Brandon can't change. Like, it's fake. Like, that's not really who he is. And it's just like, yeah, no, people can change, man. Like, there's a reason I keep my circle small. There's a reason people don't necessarily know who I am anymore, because that's one thing I've learned is you have to kind of keep that. You have to learn to keep certain stuff private. And that's a huge thing for me, is trying to find that balance of like being a barber and doing art and doing the stuff that I'm trying to do. I have to get my name out there and I have to be public, but I also really enjoy my privacy. And so it's just trying to find that balance of like being public, but also being behind the scenes and staying in my own lane type of thing. And it's just like, I've realized my peace is my most important thing to me. I just straight up don't care. That's part of like why I'm getting out of the barber industry. It's just like, not out of the barber industry. I'm still cutting hair.
Out of the business.
Yeah. Cause it's just like
aspect of it.
I fell into this 100%, but it's a very ego driven thing. And you have to have an ego to cut hair. You have to think you're good. I just don't care. Like, I don't want to sit there and go like, oh, am I better than this person? Oh, this person's better than me. Or like, oh, did you see that person's haircut? It had this in it. Or I just 100% no longer care. Like, you can think I'm the best barber in the world or the worst barber in the world. It doesn't matter. My clients come to me and they pay me money, and that's good enough for me. Like, the people who come to me and get their hair cut by me clearly think either I can cut hair good or the conversation's good, whatever it is. But I'm choosing to focus on the people that are there and not the people who aren't there type of thing. And so it's just, for me, it's like, I don't even follow any barbers on Instagram or anything. I'm just like, I don't care, man. I'm not interested in, I played sports for a long time, and then I was in the business world for a while, and I'm tired of competing.
Yeah.
I just don't care. I'm only competing against myself now, and I'm not even competing against myself. I'm just doing what I want to do. I'm tired of like, yourself. Yeah, that's a better way of putting it. And it's just like, that competitive fire in me is just, it died, man. Like, I just want to chill and do hippie stuff. Like, I'm just trying to chill and like, whatever I want to do. If I wake up and I want to paint a pair of shoes, do that. If I want to do woodworking, do that. If I want to go cut hair, that's what I'm going to do. And it's like, the only way I have the ability to do that is to take a step back and just focus on myself. And that was the ultimate thing of like, my mental health is my number one priority in life, and taking a step back and being like, I don't want to be an entrepreneur and I don't want to be responsible for other people was the number one thing I could do for my mental health. And I'm looking forward to being able to step back and just get back to, I'm not there yet because I still have the building. I'm still in the transition. I'm still like, right now life is really, really hectic, but it's like,
you can see
I see the finish line. Like, I have a date of like, okay, this is when I should be like, I should know for sure that the place is mine this day, and then I should be ready to move into the place on this day. So at least it's like a finish line, but it's like, until I get to that finish line, it's like the last part of the marathon where you're cramping and you're like, this sucks. Like, senioritis like crazy. Like you're just checked out. And you're just like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I just want to be in my spot. I don't want to deal with this. But seeing the end in sight, it takes that weight off. Where you're just like, okay, couple more weeks of this, probably a month more of this, and I'm done. Don't have to deal with it anymore. And so it's like having that light at the end of the tunnel is finally like, okay, cool. This is real. This is happening. I'm finally going to be done. That stress is going to be gone. And then once everything kind of settles down, that's when I'm going to be able to find like, okay, what's my routine now? Like now that I don't have all this stress, now that I have free time, now that I have this ability, what does that routine look like? And so that's kind of the next phase that I'm in, is just figuring out like, what does this next phase look like?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do I structure my life? What am I going to do? What days am I going to work? How long am I going to work? All that type of stuff. And so that's kind of what I'm excited for now, is just figuring out. I mean, I essentially decided to completely flip my life upside down. And it's like, it didn't surprise anyone who knows me. Like when I called my parents to tell them, they were just like, yeah, makes sense. Like I've literally called my mom before, because I've legitimately been at the spot before where I was like, hey, I might sell my house, sell my car, walk away from the barbershop and like move to like Puerto Rico or something. And she was like, I've kind of always expected a phone call. Like that's just kind of like, I just, once I make up my mind on something, it's what I'm doing. And it's like, I made up my mind. I'm done. I'm walking away, and it's simple. I'm walking away. Like I'm not a sentimental person. Like I'm not going to drive by the building when it's gone. I'm not going to like reminisce on stuff. Like
it's done.
I'm done. Chapter's closed. Like I haven't driven by the Washington spot since we sold that building. Why? Yeah, there's good memories, but there's bad memories too. And it's just kind of like, I don't know. I want to focus. Yeah, I want to focus on my future and not dwell on the past. And like, I don't know. I don't see the point. And so for me, it's like, this is 100% positive. Like, I don't think there's any part of me that's sad. Like, I think that I thought there was going to be a part of me that was like, man, and maybe it will. Maybe 6 months down the line, you'll just be like, man, like, I had a pretty good thing going. Like, I don't see it happening. And the nice thing is that, like, say it happened, and I'm like, man, I miss that. I can always go back. I can always do whatever I want to do type of thing. But I don't ever see it happening. I see myself just as a more of the lone wolf, provide for myself, be responsible for myself kind of person. And I'm excited to get back to being that.
Yeah, that's awesome.